Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Summer. Happy to be here.
Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you?
I do. It's quick. It's success starts with failure. I think, my whole life I always wanted to start a company and, reading books, listening to people's stories, watching interviews, you always hear the good stuff. You never really hear about like all the struggles and near death experiences. But those are the things that actually make a company, make a founder, make an entrepreneur. And we need to celebrate more of that stuff. So it's one of the quotes that I would share with my team and my friends and my kids, and it really helps position people to understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know if it was whether it was Sarah Blakely or somebody else. Maybe I got this wrong. Who said back in their childhood, they had this thing where at dinner, her dad would always ask, like, "What did you fail at today?" And they would celebrate that, and it kind of ingrained this thing into her mind that it was okay to fail, and it was almost encouraged because hopefully, there's some upside as well as you kind of go through that process. But yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so tell us about Salesbricks. What does the product do? Who's it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
Yeah, so Salesbricks is a deal closing platform. We help B2B SaaS founders and AI founders monetize their product. So there's a lot of jobs to be done, from commercialization of your product. So pricing and packaging, quoting, deal shaping with your customers and prospects, to executing the deal, getting paid, and then understanding what your revenue is. We handle all that within our platform, and we're really focusing on companies that are early, so anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million in ARR. They're starting to feel the pain and suffering around orchestrating all these jobs to be done, and we make it easy with just a few clicks.
And so, is this primarily for sales-led motions?
It's a good question. We are first targeting companies that are sales led. That's typically where a lot of those jobs to be done is painful, and it kind of takes a lot of time. So we're starting to realize that is the problem space we want to focus on. But as companies start to grow, they activate more go-to-market motions. They need to have two motions. So PLG, sales led, sales assist. We help them juggle that, and we're building product to help serve them and as they start to grow in those go-to-market requirements.
Great. Give us a sense of the size of the business. Where are you in terms of revenue, customers, size of team?
Yeah, so we are about $1 million in ARR. We have over 100 customers today, and we're processing millions of dollars of SaaS and AI transactions on a weekly basis. So, fun fact about Salesbricks: majority of transactions actually happen at night. So when founders are selling to other founders after their day job, they start to do all the back office stuff, and buying software is one of them. Our peak time for closing deals is around 8 to 9 o'clock at night.
The magic hour.
That's where all the transactions and contracts get signed.
Great. And then size of team, I think you told me earlier, it's 20, 20 or so people.
Yeah, we're about 22 people right now, and we're global. So we have a few folks in Asia as well as the United States.
And you've raised about 11 million.
That's right.
Okay, great. So the business was founded in 2021, 4 years ago. Where did the idea come from, and what were you doing at the time?
Yeah, so I was running RevOps and finance for a lot of early stage startups my whole career after college, and I realized a lot of companies had the same exact problem over and over again. I worked for four A16Z backed companies. I always hire number one to go solve the revenue problem. How do you build a process? How do you actually bill a customer? How do you sign a customer? And everybody had the same problem. The founders were inventing their own process, and by the time the company grew up to over $1 million, it becomes a painful, inefficient process. And so I come on board to go build all the infrastructure for the business. And about in 2018, I had my first kid, and I still live the 14 to 15 hour days of working in the office. And there was a moment where I felt really stupid. I was my kid's first Halloween trick or treat, and I was in my big dinosaur costume. And while I was, while my kid was going through the trick or treating experience, I was sending out DocuSigns within my costume, and my wife was like, "Dude, that's unfair. Like, you're supposed to be here right now, and yes, you're here, but you're not here." And I had like 15, 17, a bunch of people texting me like, "Hey, when's the DocuSign out? Oh, I need to make a revision. Oh, we need to send out the invoice to this customer. Otherwise, we're not going to get paid this month." And all this stuff was happening because I was a chokehold for the process. And I realized like, hey, I don't want to get fired by my wife. I need to be a father, but I also need to help run the business. And I said, there must be a better way to do things. And so it really planted the seed in my mind to go build a company. I'll go ahead and work my ass off, but if I could protect a bunch of parents from this experience, and they could actually live a work-life balance, but also still run the business, that'd be great to start a company that will impact and provide, that type of technology for folks. And so, fast forward to 2021, was really the idea of like, hey, why can't I have and build a RevOps in a box for companies to go close deals, but not have to do like 90% of the busy work from it.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like you know a great mission to focus on and solve. I guess one question I'd have for you is like most people wouldn't say I'm working these really long hours and I'm gonna to get more balance. I'm gonna go and launch a startup, right? That just sounds like you're, let's say, like out of the cold into the fire or whatever that quote is. Um, so was it more about that was when you had that kind of seed planted, but you didn't act on that until things changed a bit?
I always wanted to start a company my whole life, right? Like I invented a lot of things. I tried to do a startup in my college years. I just love building things that add value. So I don't think I ever thought my life would be, filled with careers that, was 6, 7 hours a day. So I think there's a little bit of me saying, hey, I want to actually build something for myself. I actually want to be proud of something that, the impact I have in an industry or the world. And so a mix of that plus like, hey, I really understand this problem space was kind of the reason why I started Salesbricks. And even though I work, longer than 8 hours a day, which is kind of a requirement for founders, when I come home, I feel energized. I feel like I've impacted, I've added value to companies and to other founders. And when I see my kids, I'm like, hey, like, I could pause for a little bit and hang out with you, knowing that I've helped a bunch of founders close millions of dollars today.
Okay, let's take a quick breather here. Are you struggling to bring your SaaS idea to life without a technical co founder? Well, Gearhart is here to help. They're a product development studio founded by serial entrepreneurs. Acting as your fractional CTO, they've built over 70 successful products, including SmartSuite, which was named 2024 SaaS Startup of the Year. After selling his last company for $200 million, SmartSuite's founder turned to Gearhart to build his next big idea. Their Ukrainian-born team combines world-class expertise with Silicon Valley connections, helping you scale your product faster and smarter. Gearhart's leadership team even works directly with founders, offering deep insight into startup success. Book your free 1-hour strategy session with their leadership team before the end of May at gearheart.io. That's gearheart.io. Your co-founder is John. How did you guys meet, and kind of what were the first initial steps you took to turn this idea into something real?
John was a husband of a gal I used to work with at two companies. One of them was Lithium Technologies, and the other one was Signal Effects, which got acquired by Splunk. She ran deal desk with me. She was in the fire on the ground floor, running 24/7, like, generating contracts and negotiating renewals with our customers. And so she understood the problem. So one day I actually said, hey, like thinking about starting a company. It kind of automates our jobs out. And what do you think about it? And she's like, she saw the PowerPoint. She's like, my husband's going to go build it for you. He's an engineer. And so I met John many times before that actual event, but like we formally had these conversations when we went to Santana Row one weekend, and we just talked about the problem, and he was all game for it. So that kind of really started the whole process of kind of ideating the official business.
And so once you had him on board with this idea, was it still a part-time thing for a while? Like, how long did it take for you guys to jump in with both feet?
Yeah, I think we were kind of thinking about what we were going to do and how we're going to build the business for about 2 months. Obviously, we were just ideating, but I think 2 months after we both quit our jobs, we forgoed a lot. Like I got a lot of promotions in my previous careers, and it got me to a very pretty comfortable salary. And you forego that when you start a company, but you're so excited about the opportunity, the upside, that for 6 months we weren't taking any revenue. We weren't taking a salary. We got some funding from some folks that I worked with in the past. God bless them. They took a huge bet on me in the early days without even a product. But to me, that felt like that's a lot of responsibility. I'm going to save that money for buying computers and for incorporating the company. But we didn't take salary for about 6 months.
And how much did you raise? Was kind of like, was it just friends and family kind of round?
It was a friends and family. I think it was about 250,000 amongst top sales leaders in the in the SaaS space. Travis Patterson, who I used to work with, he was the head of sales at a few companies that I worked at. Mark Cranny, who is one of the early partners at Andreessen Horowitz. I worked for him for about 2 years. I've learned so much in the process of working under Mark. He was the first guy that ever dragged me to a fundraising, powwow with a bunch of top tier VCs in, Silicon Valley. I grew up real fast working with Mark. And so, having him put some money in the company was amazing. His friends put money in my company. One of the CROs, the founding CROs of Okta, who had the opportunity to ring the bell there at when they went public, put a bunch of money in our company. And so that started kind of the friends and family round. And after that, we raised about 750 from a company called Surface Ventures, a seed wing in RTP Global who invested in Datadog in the early days.
I mean, that initial raise, I mean, you didn't even have a product at the time, right? Because you spent about 18 months building the right product before you really focused on go to market and, kind of seriously in terms of customer acquisition. So, what did you use to raise money? Were you just going around and showing a slide deck, or was it like more like social proof because one person had put some money in based on kind of knowing you, and that was kind of added a bunch of credibility?
Yeah, so for us, it was really talking about the problem space because these investors were sales leaders. They knew that there was a huge problem in the quote to cash and deal negotiation phase of the sales process. They understood what we were building. Like I didn't have to do a slide deck. They've worked with me for years, and they're like, I trust you. This problem is definitely a problem. I face it today. My peers face it, and usually they're excited to go and put some money in the early days. I think obviously they're coin operated, so 25K check here, hopefully in 5 years, 5 to 10 years becomes millions of dollars. And as founders, like that's my job, is to make these guys and gals super rich. Like they're capitalists, and we love capitalists. That's what moves. That's what helps us businesses grow. But yeah, everyone was very excited about solving this problem with me.
Right. So tell me about the decision and why it took you, uh, you know, almost 2 years to get to the point where you could have a product that you felt comfortable enough to go and sell seriously.
Yeah, I think because we're in the fintech space, because we touch revenue, we touch transactions, we had to build a very, very stable product in the early days. Otherwise, one small issue, you lose your trust with your prospects and your customers. So we spent a lot of time really focusing on building and architecting the right product. Even Salesforce today, like they struggled to perfect CPQ, which is, you know, in the old term, that's effectively what we're building here is a configure price quote. And they gave up on it. Like about 6 months ago, they said, "Hey, we're gonna stop. We're gonna deprecate this product." It's a very mission critical product. Like sitting on people's pricing and packaging and product catalog is no, you know, joke. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of serving various businesses, and whether it be AI, software, hardware companies, sitting on empowering people's price book is very, very mission critical. And we had to go invent and architect that CPQ the complete opposite way of what Salesforce did. They do they've architected so that as you make changes to your pricing, your packaging, it generates and exhausts thousands of rows of permutations that gets queried for your order builder, that gets queried for an entitlement check. For Salesbricks, we had to undo every one of those architectural decisions that they made and say, hey, how do we shrink this and how do we make this very lightweight? One day people are going to be buying software with a few clicks of a button. The information needs to pass to the vendor quickly so that they can design and power that user experience within milliseconds. If they bought only 10 licenses, they should only have access to invite 10 people. That check has to happen within milliseconds. You can't do that with Salesforce CPQ. What Salesbricks is building is to build that architecture so that 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 experience, that customer experience when buying software, when buying AI, is very fast. And so we had to spend a lot of time really thinking about this properly. And I have no regrets around how much time we've spent on kind of really building the core product.
Devil's advocate, you say you have no regrets, but I know one of the things you also told me earlier was in hindsight, we overbuilt, right? We try to do this all encompassing product for everybody and um, had to kind of dial that back and get very focused on a specific ICP. So totally understand in terms of getting the product right and having trust when you're touching people's anything to do with revenue, right? Is like super sensitive, high kind of trust thing. But tell me about what happened with the overbuilding part.
I think there's no doubt that almost every B2B SaaS company has a problem around quote to cash. So that actually became the first problem that we had. It was just a very big market. We thought that we would build our product initially for enterprise companies. And so I came from enterprise. I felt very comfortable building enterprise features. It just naturally what pushed me to build Salesbricks in the early days. And in reality, like we realized that they're not the right ICP for us. These enterprise companies, though they have that problem, the analogy I like to use is like, hey, the house I live in is way too small, or the house I live in is really breaking and falling apart. But people tend to not move because the cost of moving, both financially and also in terms of time and effort, is just way too high. And so, although they might live in a house that has asbestos on the ceiling, they're like, I'd rather not move and die of asbestos. I'd rather die of asbestos than die of like the efforts of moving that, you know, my family out of the house. In many ways, like we realize like these enterprise companies don't want to change their system. They don't want to change their ways. And we kind of built for those companies early. We didn't do enough interviews and research with kind of the market. I realized the enterprise had a problem because I lived in that space. What we really should have been serving was actually the early stage companies. They're the ones who actually start to form a habit in the early days of doing quote to cash a different way. It's very monotonous and menial. There's just so many things to be done. It's very manual in that regard. Those are the ones that we should be serving. And so we kind of went the opposite direction. And I think for that reason, our messaging was a little bit weird. It wasn't, we weren't fast at acquiring logos, you know, And so what we've done is we've stripped away a lot of that product complexion, and we're really focusing on these companies that are anywhere from $500,000 to 2 million. Those are the ones where it's like, hey, Stripe is starting to become a pain in the ass for me from a billing perspective. I'm starting to hack it. I'm starting to build my entire infrastructure on top of Stripe, when they realize they're actually becoming a sales-led motion. So those are the companies we should really be going after, and we've been making some changes to really support and justify that move going down market was best for us.
Originally, when you were targeting enterprise, how long did you do that? How many times did you have to hear no before you decided to focus on a different ICP?
I think the first year of going to market was probably a good kind of like how long we've been kind of focusing on that. I think the key area in the situation that made us realize we're going after the wrong ones was when our sales cycle started to take 3 months. And though we had a lot of champions within the go to market team, the finance person was like, hey, all of our revenue is on this process or this incumbent solution that we've been using for 3 years, 4 years. We just couldn't get a yes from the people who actually signed the contracts. And we never had access to the CEOs in these type of sales cycles. But now as we start to go down market, like we talk directly to the founders and the CEOs of the company who actually are doing and feeling this pain, and getting access to them leads to, like, we've had a sales cycle where it took 5 days and we got a pretty decent 5-figure deal. And those are signals that say, hey, yes, this bet is starting to pay off. Selling to the CEOs and founders were actually the right way to go about this.
Now, that's not an uncommon situation. A lot of founders are in the same place where they think they know their ICP until they realize it's the wrong ICP. Can you tell me a little bit about the process you went through to figure out who to focus on instead?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like those sales conversations that you've been having. So like, what is the pattern that you're seeing as you start to get yeses and even no's and even yeses? Um, I think for us, like, we didn't have a particular exercise or process of it. It was just a lot of founders coming back, in our sales team, like coming back to these internal calls and saying, hey, like, we're getting people to say, hey, this actually makes a lot of sense, but they just don't want to make the change right now, and they're going to continue to hack their processes today. It was just a lot of internal conversations amongst us team, within Salesbricks, to understand, like, what does our gut tell us about how we should focus on these companies. And many times it's also feature requests. These companies, though they are giving you their money, they're asking you to go build things that really only represent a feature that only 20% of your customer base needs. And to this day, like, some companies, some prospects of ours are saying, hey, we need to go build this integration or this particular feature. And um, those are red flags for us to say, hey, we might not be the right fit for you at this moment.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about how you identified, okay, there's a new ICP, we're making a new bet, right? We have this hypothesis based on everything we've sort of learned and discovered so far that enterprise is the wrong way to go. Early stage startups are probably a better ICP for us. What happened once you made some changes to the product and you started reaching out to these customers or potential customers? What was different? What did you sense was going on? Did closing a sale immediately become easier? Did you initially see, so okay, there's some signs of success here, but we haven't quite nailed our messaging or whatever? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, I think some of the signs that we started to play in the right ICP was, again, faster sales cycles. So people were starting to feel this pain. They were willing and able and very excited to meet with us, right? Like, there's no, let's push this meeting out to next week. Let's push this meeting out to next month. None of that happened, right? There's genuinely a pain and suffering, and they're excited. They're the first ones to show up on the sales call. They're like, I'm ready to tell you about my problems. In fact, they would prep us. They're like, hey, like we're meeting next week, but I just wanted to list out the problems that we're having, um, so that we can make our 30 minutes next week as productive as possible. That is a good sign. That to me is like these guys have a pain in the problem, and the CEO is spending 30 minutes, 20 minutes writing this up so that when we do meet face to face, like we're as productive and we're chipping away at the valuation as much as possible. And I started to use that, and if people are not giving me their their list of problems before the actual meeting, I start to figure out like, is this a high intent prospect, or are they just in the window shopping phase? So for as we started to go down market, those are the types of things we saw. So faster sales cycles, more engaged folks within their team. The other problem that we're starting to encounter is like these people, when we acquire them as a customer, they're asking us to go build all these things in our product, but they actually make a lot of sense. And for me, like I would have never thought that we would need to go build this stuff out. And when we ask other customers within our base, like, hey, would this feature make a lot of sense? They're like, I was just about to ask you if you could build this out. And they're helping you actually formulate your roadmap. And the roadmap, you know, when you take a step back from it, it's like, this is actually not what I intended to go build, but actually if we build this, it makes a lot of sense. So for me, like that was the aha moment. It's like, I'm not telling my EPD team to go build stuff. That's the I went too high up market problem. When you go and you hit your ICP, it's like, hey, the customers are actually telling you to go build out these cool things. And for us, like we're energized. We're like, oh, paying customers asking us to go build this. And when we build it, it's like we get thumbs up. We start to see more GMV processed through our platform within their org specifically, and they go ask us to go build the next best feature as well. So as a next step. So in many ways, like I'm no longer an inventor. My customers are, but that's really very healthy for our business and in many regards. But as a founder, like as we start to define who our ICP is, and we start to evolve and grow with them, there's a little bit of inventing that still needs to happen from the founding team.
Love that. Okay, so the first 20 or 30 customers that you got, you said to me were like from the founder Rolodex. I think it's funny because if I told my kids Rolodex, they'd be like, "What is that?" You know, but we all know what that means, right? And then, like all startups, you tried outbound cold calling, didn't have a huge amount of success with that. You were getting a lot of low quality leads coming through. So I'd love for you just to talk about some of the challenges you faced there, and then tell us a little bit about what did work with referrals. Like, what exactly did you figure out and get working as a growth channel?
Yeah, so I had a big network in terms of like sales leaders who I used to work with. They leave the company, they become the first sales leader in startups, and so I'd say about 30 of our first customers were Rolodex from my from my network. And then as they started to buy our product, they would share that with their peers, and we eventually we're having like referrals from within the Rolodex. But don't get me wrong, like we did do a lot of outbounding, and we still do at Salesbricks in some regard. But the outbounding motion is, in my opinion, very much dead. It's like you're reaching out to somebody at the wrong time, but they somehow are nice to you to go take a 30-second pitch, and then they are intrigued and they like have a meeting with you, but then there's really no pain, or they don't understand the pain yet. And so even though we have like 10, 15 meetings booked per week on an outbound motion, like the conversion rate of those companies finding Salesbricks as a solution to go solve a problem is very low. So we're not going to fight that anymore. And I think we're starting to see a lot of inbound from our customers. So just a little bit of TLDR about our product. Like our customers are using Salesbricks to send out digital contracts. Those digital contracts are powered by a URL, and they look like a checkout flow. I would compare it to maybe like buying a pair of shoes on Nike, for example. There's a product section on the left, and there's a cost table on the right. We've designed Salesbricks to look and feel exactly like buying something in the B2C world. Um, when you see and experience how easy it is to buy software using Salesbricks, a lot of our customers, it resonates with them. They actually often compare their DocuSign or manual signing process and say, hey, this was really cool experience. How does that compare to my experience of selling my software? And I'd say about 4 to 5 meetings per week are actually inbound through that flow, that actual experience. And we're starting to capitalize off of that in many ways. And our customers are very nice enough to say, hey, yeah, you should go check out Salesbricks. Every one of our transactions are powered through it, and that's actually a very high intent and high probability lead for us because they're founders. They're the ones who actually have the purse strings, and they understand how things work in their business, and they're the ones who actually make the decisions. And so they typically convert faster than if they were an IC type lead.
So is it the kind of the word of mouth referral, or is it the integration in the product that like the link back or whatever? Like what is it that you think is driving those referrals?
It's basically a powered by button from Salesbricks on that, and I'd say about it gets clicked maybe for every 10 contracts that our customers send out. I think about 4 of them actually click that button.
Interesting.
That's actually something we've designed purposely, and it's been really it's been paying off for us at Salesbricks.
Let's we're gonna have to wrap up soon, but let's quickly talk about hiring. Um, so you know you and John started this business 2021. You've grown to a team of I think you said 22 people right now, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. You had some challenges along the way. Looking back, you felt like you hired too quickly, hired many of the wrong people, and it wasn't just we hired the wrong people. It actually led to you having to make a bunch of cuts not so long ago. Just tell me a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, so we made some hires in the past at Salesbricks where um, I wouldn't say it's like we were hiring for warm bodies, but we needed people to fill the role, right? Back in two and 2.5 years ago, it was really hard to hire an engineer, and we kind of let our guard down in terms of the experience and the quality of skill sets, and we hired very junior people as well. And so when you hire a lot of junior people, you might say, hey, the costs make sense. It's a third of a full of a well experienced engineer. We're going to get effectively half the productivity, but if we hire 3 of them, it's like the same productivity.
In theory, right? Yeah.
You're onboarding, you're teaching, you're actually enabling on the actual problem space that you're trying to solve it. You're solving, and it requires a lot of management. And the managers at Salesbricks are also ICs. Like they're actually coding. They're the fastest coders at Salesbricks. And so we realized it wasn't effectively the math formula that we're laughing about today. And in fact, it's actually negative return. And so although they're going to be one day very powerful, life-changing engineers in the world, we just don't have the infrastructure from a management perspective to do that and to see them successful here. So about a year and a half ago, we had to let go of those folks. I think it was good for them as equally it was good for us. And we've been investing a lot in enablement on folks and engineers that we've been hiring that have a lot of potential, and they're not junior, but they're understanding the space that we're building in, and we're starting to use AI in kind of our development these days. But I think hiring for us, like it really taught us like we need to start hiring people that have a lot of experience. They can be self-sustaining. They can be productive on their own, and actually teach the founders sometimes how to do things the right way. So we made a lot of hires since then, and very experienced folks, and it's been paying off ever since.
And was there something specific you did to raise the bar in terms of who was a yes hire?
Yeah, I think one thing that we thought about is like Salesbricks needs to be a place where A players thrive, and so people who go above and beyond, people who are very curious about what we're building, and go above their their punching weight. And so for us, like if you have this concept of like your company is for A players, you really set the stage around who should actually continue to be at the company and who should we should say goodbye to. And when you think about like there's C players and there's A players, if you keep the C players on for too long, the A players get burnt out, right? And it's not fair for them, and they eventually leave, and then you lose A players a lot of productivity. If you fire quickly, and we had to do something like this about a month ago. It wasn't easy, but we had to rip the band-aid from it. They were only at the company for about 3 weeks, and we had to let them go because we are starting to live, and we are very we want to stay true to it. It's like Salesbricks, this company is for A players, and we wanted to protect the A players by not putting in and or keeping the C players. So that's one of the things that's been really helpful for me as we hire, and also, unfortunately, we have to fire sometimes as well.
Okay. On that note, let's wrap up and get onto the lightning round. I've got 7 quick fire questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, what's one of the best pieces of business advice you've received?
Hire people who are smarter than you. Um, as a founder, you're not the smartest person in the room, and you should know that, and you should embrace that. But hiring people who are really good at their particular industry or the job that they perform is gonna help you be the smartest person in the room as well. So like hiring people who are better, elevate you, elevate the company, elevate your customers, elevate the product.
What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
I would say "Amp It Up" by Frank Slootman from Snowflake. Accountability, relentlessness, execution, and accountability. Those are the things that will help a company move leaps and bounds.
What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Humility, I think. Knowing when you should say you're wrong, celebrate that, and embrace people being wrong many times and often, but learning from it as well is important. But being somebody who's balanced and people can approach to, someone who's not in the ivory tower, that's one thing I've been hopefully staying true to.
What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
My favorite productivity habit is to spend the very first 30 minutes of your day kind of making sure you set some tasks and to be do's at a list, and making sure that at the end of the day you see what progress you made, and you can rank yourself on how well you did.
What's a new or crazy business idea you'd love to pursue if you had the time?
I want to build an AI agent that can protect people's inbox from AI agents selling to them.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking about that the other day. It's like we seriously need more of those types of products. So if you ever do that, I'll sign up for it.
As AI gets more powerful, I get more and more inboxes. I'm like, I don't even have time to unsubscribe to these things.
What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
About 4 years ago, I took a lot of acquisition money and bought in cash 3 Subway restaurants.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. So you're running those now?
I had to sell them during COVID, so no longer have them, but they were teachable moments for me around picking yourself up when you fall, and having the opportunity to pick yourself up is a blessing, especially in this country.
Yeah, yeah. And finally, what's one of your most important passions outside of your work?
I love hanging out with my kids. My kid just started to play soccer. I'm into it more than he is, which is weird. But, I love just spending time with my family.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking about the story of Salesbricks and where you are today or how you got here, more importantly. If people want to check out Salesbricks, they can go to salesbricks.com. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You could LinkedIn me. I'm always available.
Awesome. We'll include a link to your profile in the show notes. Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you and the team the best of success.
Thanks, Omar.
My pleasure. Cheers.